Kevin Sayles is going to be our speaker tonight. He is absolutely amazing. He's wrote a couple of books. I'm going to tell you all about Kevin in just a few brief moments. In the meantime, I'm TANGIE Cousins. I've been with Foreclosures Daily since 2004. Since then, I've helped many investors, realtors, and attorneys grow their business and increase their revenues. I teach people how to use different lead types that we have to offer here at Foreclosures Daily. I teach the do's and don'ts of marketing, what to say, what not to say, how often to mail, the spacing in between. In fact, I'm going to be doing y'all's webinar for you in April. So stay tuned for the, I think it's the second Tuesday in April. I'll be doing the webinar for you guys. It's called the Innovative Investors Webinar. To learn more about Foreclosures Daily, you can get on that or just reach out to me and ask questions. It's TANGIE at ForeclosuresDaily.com. Now, who we are, we're Foreclosures Daily is a nationwide lead provider. We provide leads to investors, realtors, attorneys, and just your basic first-time home buyer. And since 2004, we have been the #1 internet destination for the most detailed, timely, and accurate information. So here's how we're different, guys. I want to talk about a few things. This is really important. This is the most important part of the whole entire webinar when it comes to talking about Foreclosures Daily, is how we are different, because it's actually second to none. It's imperative to understand this. So pay close attention. All of the leads that we offer have real estate attached and are weekly and fresh, okay? Or daily if you're in Florida for the foreclosures, but all of our leads are weekly and fresh, and there's real estate attached. Most companies that we have found are typically quarterly, and the problem is they're not farming for real estate. Trust me when I tell you, you do not want to market to 300 probates, or let's say 300 divorce leads if only 15 have property. That's 285 extra people that you'll be having to skip trace, mail, SMS, ringless voicemail, or whatever marketing techniques that you're using, that you'd be having to waste all of those marketing efforts for no reason whatsoever. So it is imperative that you understand that all of our leads are weekly and fresh and farmed for real estate. We here at Foreclosures Daily understand the importance and the fresh of having data that's farmed for real estate and that's fresh. And these are some of the different types of leads that we can provide you here at Foreclosures Daily. We do things like probates, pre-probates, absentee owners, inheritance, divorce leads, tax lates, auctions, list pendants. We also do a la carte leads, such as like cash buyers, distressed homeowners, stuff like that. But co-violations and evictions are also awesome. But let me talk about probate and pre-probates for just a brief moment, okay? Because this is important. This is what Kevin is going to be talking about a lot tonight. Probates and pre-probates by far are honestly some of the best leads y'all will ever get. They have a lot of equity. They typically don't mind taking a discount, and they're very motivated. You know, people tend to be like 50 and 60 when they lose their parents. So they usually don't want the property. They usually want to sell the property. So you're usually dealing with very motivated sellers who don't mind taking deeply discounts for their homes. So like I said, people are typically 50 and 60 when they lose their parents. So they typically don't want the house. They usually want to sell it. So you end up getting these properties for deeply discounted wholesale pricing. And they're usually very motivated too. A lot of times people can't afford to hang on to the property, and they end up losing it in foreclosure. So probates and pre-probates are awesome. Now, a probate basically means that they file probate. Last week, we verified there's real estate attached, and then we give the lead to you this week. The benefit of using a probate is if they do have to go through probate, well, at least they've already filed and they may be closer to making a decision. And a lot of people make the mistake by thinking you have to completely finish the probates before you can take over the property. And honestly, guys, in most states, that's just not true. Most of the time, you can take ownership of the property almost right away. It's very, very quick, actually. Some states are different, so just check your local laws and whatnot. But in general, I know here in Florida that you can take ownership pretty much almost right away. So now, a pre-probate basically means that they died last week. We verify there's real estate attached, and then we give the lead to you this week. Now, the benefit of using a pre-probate is not only will you be first at the door, but if they inherit the property via a trust, you could buy now. So that's the benefit of using a probate versus a pre-probate. Now, it's very beneficial to use both lead services. A lot of people think, oh, you know, which one should I use? Well, if you have the marketing budget, there's no reason why you shouldn't be using both of them. And it's called striking the iron while it's hot. Now, just because it happens to be in a probate and you may catch it on your probate list, 6 months later, it doesn't matter, because chances are you're probably going to be done marketing to them by then anyways. And this will strike up like a whole new mailing campaign for you and marketing campaign and reaching out all over again. And it's called striking the iron while it's hot, which is really important, guys. So you definitely want to market to both probate and pre-probates if you have the opportunity to. So these are some of the leads that we do offer here at Foreclosures Daily. And like I said, the owner is going to be giving away a free county for anybody who signs up between now and Friday if you were on this webinar. Now, you get a lot of bonuses when you buy our leads. One of the bonuses that you get are postcards. We give you access to a link to a mail house that will give you deeply discounted rates for utilizing the postcards that we have picked out for you. Some of them that we have picked out for you. And you could use these postcards at deeply discounted rates. For example, they're only charging 42 cents with postage to send these awesome postcards with an actual picture of the property. So no more driving by and driving for dollars and taking pictures of the property and having it shoot out a postcard with a picture of the house, when you can just email them your probate list, and they're going to use the Google Earth Street View to get this picture and capture the picture of the property for you. So you send this postcard out, saying something like, hey, is this your house? Are you selling this? Question mark. It's a catchy postcard, and people usually are really good about responding to that. The national average response rate tends to be around 0.5 to 1.5%. Guys, I literally have people getting 3, 5, 10, and 15% response rates with these types of postcards. So here's a letter too that we recommend. This letter is using the handwritten font. And if you email them your probate list, they will shoot out this letter for you, and you can customize it to pretty much say what you want. And we do have recommendations here at Foreclosures Daily. You get a toolbox full of marketing information. And one of the things on there is a letter that we recommend. And you can take that letter and put it into this one. It basically lets them know that you're interested in purchasing the property. So, and they use a handwritten font to make it look like you hand wrote the letter. So that's pretty good too. Here's some of the bonuses that you'll receive when you buy leads through ForeclosuresDaily.com. This is unlike any other company. We give you so much. This is a toolbox full of bonuses we give you here at Foreclosures Daily to help you be more successful at utilizing our list. One of the things that we give you is a 6-step mailing campaign and a 6-touch campaign, telling you how often you should mail, the spacing in between, and how many times to mail. We also give you some phone scripts. One of the phone scripts that we give you is how to speak to the person that answers the decedent's phone versus how to speak to the person who answers the family member's phone. We also give you a script on how to negotiate with the seller right over the phone, as well as a script to speak to the attorney if there's one involved, if it's a probate versus a pre-probate. We also give you an email already made out to send to the attorneys expressing interest in the said properties and any other properties that they may have to help you build a rapport with the attorney. We also give you postcards, letter, links to special reduced mail rate companies, skip tracing services, and so on and so forth. One of the skip tracing services we recommend, what's really special about them, is not only are they only going to charge you 15 cents for being referred by Foreclosures Daily and using our special code, but they're also going to skip trace the decedents for you or whoever you give them, and they're going to give you the surrounding family members at no additional charge. So that's really good about this company. Some of the things that we offer here, like I mentioned earlier, are probate, pre-probate, inheritance, code violation, eviction, divorce. These are the prices for each of those services, not all of them, you guys, each of them. So if you want to go ahead and just take a screenshot of this, take a picture of it, do whatever you need to do to get this, a copy of this, because this is going to be going away in just a moment when I introduce Kevin. Now, these prices are deeply discounted already. I'll give you just a brief moment to take a picture of this. These prices are for each of the services, not all of them. Like if you want probates, we do recommend that you try and make a longer commitment. Kevin's discount for being on this call, on this webinar tonight, our discount for you is a lot cheaper on the 6 month in the year. And we want you to make a longer commitment. Honestly, guys, the people that make the longer commitments just tend to be much more successful in the long run because they're working the list longer, stronger, and harder, and it just produces much more success. When you make longer commitments as humans, we tend to work things harder and a lot differently when we have more skin involved. Take a picture of this. And by the way, I don't know if John's on this call or not, but I understand he was supposed to be on this call tonight. John, if you are on this call tonight, send a chat in the group and just say hi. It's John's birthday today. I talked to him and his partner, Gregory, today, and it was a great conversation. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday from Foreclosures Daily. I promised him I'd sing that to him tonight if he was on this webinar, and he is on this webinar. So happy birthday, John, from Foreclosures Daily. We're like a family-oriented company here at Foreclosures Daily, guys. So my information is down on the bottom of the screen. It's Tangie Cousins, Tangie@ForeclosuresDaily.com. You can also text me if you have a question, 863-698-3550. I've got my office line on there too with my extension. Many ways to reach out, or reach out to your representative if you're already working with somebody at Foreclosures Daily. But I want to talk about Kevin for just a second because we're almost ready to introduce him. Kevin has been in real estate for over 20 years, guys, 20 years. And he does buying and holding. Now he does do some fix and flips, but in general, Kevin's a buy and hold investor, and he's been doing it for 20 years. And he's also a closing agent. And what's really unique about him is he's an investor, a closing agent, and he's wrote 2 books. He's been a closing agent and a title agent for over like 10 years, I think, or 15 years. I'm not sure how long, but he's done over 15,000 transactions since he's became a closing agent. And he wrote the book called Probate Real Estate Sales 101. And I'm not sure if you know this or not, but when you buy the leads here at Foreclosures Daily, you actually get a copy of Kevin's book. He was kind enough to give us some deeply discounted rates here at Foreclosures Daily on his books to send out to every single subscriber of Foreclosures Daily. Whether you're involved in his coaching program or not, anything, you get a free book from Foreclosures Daily and Kevin just for subscribing to any of the lead types we offer here at Foreclosures Daily. And also, he also wrote a book, not just Probate Real Estate Sales 101, he also wrote The Wholesaler's Guide to Closing Real Estate Deals. So without further ado, I would like to introduce this awesome speaker, Mr. Kevin Sayles. He's going to be sharing his screen here in just a brief moment. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Tangie, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being on.
Yes, I would love to be here anytime that you would have me. So thanks so much for having me. And I really appreciate that introduction. That was phenomenal. Thank you for that. And yes, you know, I've been investing for 20 years, and I've been in the real estate business for about 27 years now. So thank you for that. And can you see my screen sharing and you can hear me okay?
I can, and I can hear you just fine. Kevin, the one thing I wanted to know is how long have you been a title closing agent? I didn't get that part down.
Since 1999, so 22 years, I guess. April will be 22 years, in fact, yeah.
Okay, well, I was close. I said 10 or 20 or 15.
Then after you've been doing it for 10 or 15 years, it all just adds extra numbers. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Kevin, I know that you have like hours of Zooms packed into this 1 hour we give you. So let you take it over from here, and we'll talk to you in the next, I'd say, hour.
Sounds like a plan. And everybody, you know, Tangie already said this, but be sure to put your questions in the Q&A. At the end, Tangie's going to read those questions off. I really like answering the questions about your specific situations. I'm going to cover a lot of information so that you'll know how to move forward with probate transactions in your area, but your specific questions are always great. So I look forward to that. Probate real estate is a phenomenal niche to be in. I was talking with a guy earlier today, and what I was explaining to him and what he understood is this: people die when times are good, people die when times are bad. People die during a pandemic, people die when there's no pandemic. There's nothing that changes people dying, and when they die, they own real estate, and we're all in the real estate game. So this is wealth that is changing hands. Baby boomers control about 70% of US wealth. This is a huge tidal wave of wealth that is changing hands as the baby boomers get older and die off. The California Department of Health Services says a baby boomer dies every 57.9 seconds. So we've been on this webinar about 16 minutes. We've already lost 16 baby boomers. You know, that's just a rapid rate of the wealthiest generation ever to walk the planet dying. And what happens to their estates? Inevitably, a lot of property has to be sold and transfer. And there's great deals in this business. I'm going to go over that, and you'll hear some great stories as we go through this presentation. Largest transfer of wealth in history. And nowadays, there's more competition. We have the iBuyers, we have OfferPad, we have Open Door, we have Zillow, Redfin, all these companies that are buying residential real estate. Not talking about buying skyscrapers in downtown LA or a big building in New York City. We're talking about they're buying single family residences in regular neighborhoods. That's a position that us investors did not have in years in the past. And so now it's more challenging, but probate is a niche that requires additional knowledge and skill to be successful. Remember that. Probate is a niche that requires additional knowledge and skill to be able to navigate the idiosyncrasies and the logistics in your specific area. That's how you beat out those big investors, the Zillow offer, et cetera, because they can't always deal with those types of situations. So let's start by talking about what is probate. Probate is the gathering of the assets of a deceased party and gathering all their debts, paying off their debts, and distributing whatever's left over to the heirs. That's it in a nutshell. In some states, it's a court-ordered process. In other states, you may not have to go to court, but that's essentially what it is in a nutshell. There is a ton of probate. I can't go through every state that's represented on this call, but these are some of the most populous states in the nation. There's a ton of probate going on. 99,000 in Texas, 55,000 probates in 2015 in Florida. The numbers are crazy how much probate there is going on. And most of the time, or a large portion of the time, there's real estate in these cases. That real estate has to be sold. It's a beautiful thing because with probate, you have a seller that is not wishy-washy, is not thinking about selling. They have to sell. They died, they have to sell. There's no going back. So you have a seller that's ready, willing, and able to move that property forward. So here's some of the ebooks and books that I've written. Probate Real Estate Sales 101 was a bestseller on Amazon. My background, as Tangie mentioned, is I'm a closing agent with a title company. I look at a trust, a probate, a conservatorship, a power of attorney, several of these every single day in my job. And I've always wanted to, when I was in banking before I got into title insurance, I wanted to be in real estate. I learned from some unofficial mentors. These were clients of ours at the bank that mentored me, and they probably didn't even know they were mentoring me, but I was asking questions and I was paying attention and I was learning from them in real life situations. And I chalk up some of my success and my wealth in my life because of the information I learned from those guys. And I love to share that information with others. So I get really emphatic about real estate. I get on a soapbox. I love to talk about it. And sometimes I go overboard, but it's just because I love real estate. I love investing and buying properties. So when we talk about probate, probate is an umbrella. Yes, there is the court-ordered probate. There's the court process that happens on some of the situations that you come across, but it's this umbrella that covers more than just actual probate cases. So probate, number one, let's talk about why there's such good deals in probate. Number one is it's other people's property. So I had a car that I got rid of a few years back. It was a 2003 Infiniti G35 Coupe. I loved that car. I put 245,000 miles on that car. How much did I like that car, right? That car drove me to closing after closing, drove me out of state to look at property, drove me all over California, signing docs, closing deals as a closing agent, closing deals as an investor. That car was my business. My office was that car. How much did I love that car? To me, that car was very valuable. It never broke down on me, never had a major expense, never had to replace a transmission, nothing like that. Just normal maintenance. So to me, that car is invaluable. You know, I'm thinking this car's got, should be worth 10 or 15,000. So if I want to sell that car, how much do I want to sell for? Top dollar. I want to get that car and sell it for the highest. Well, I think Tangie mentioned someone, I think the name was John, that has a birthday today. Whatever your name is that you have a birthday today. If I gave you that car and gave it to you as a gift, completely gave it to you, and you didn't want the car and you wanted to sell it, how much would John sell it for? He would sell it for a whole different thing, right? He'd probably be on this webinar going, hey, if anybody's got $1,000, give it to me. The car's yours. Because it's not his car. That car didn't drive him 245,000 miles. That car was not the most reliable thing he ever drove for 10 years straight. It's a very big difference. So when a person is selling their own home, it's their home. I put the tile in here. I chose the paint in here. They have vested interest. When it's the kid's home or the nephew's home or someone else, a sibling's home, they're just like, I just want to sell this asset, get my money and get out of here. Because it's other people's property, there are huge deals in probate real estate. The other thing, this is the ultimate distress. I'll give you an example. I have a client that I coach. I started coaching, I don't know, 19 months ago, something like that. He's doing phenomenal in real estate. And he had been a sales manager at a real estate company, and we knew each other from past. I trained his real estate office on probate many times, and he had not sold real estate since like the 80s or 90s, since like a long time, more than a decade. I think it was closer to 2 decades. And he said, Kevin, I'm going to get back into real estate. I think probate is the area I want to be in. You're the guru. I want you to coach me and train me and get me involved in this. And he's killing it right now. So last year he had 16 properties to sell in probate. And this is going to sound like a bad news story, but it's going to end up really being a good news story. So 16 properties. They had court dates. These types, the type of sale these were, had to go to court before they could be sold. They had court dates to confirm their sale in late March of 2020. What happened around mid-March? The courts in California closed up. So you couldn't have court hearings, meaning the properties couldn't be sold. But you know what? He never once had to worry about if he was going to sell these. There was never a question about if they were going to be sold. These properties had to be sold. There was no way that the seller could change their mind. These properties had to be sold. Not I'm thinking about it or I might sell. These properties, it was a must in this case. As soon as the courts opened back up, they got a court date. I think it was 1 week in September, October. We closed 9 properties in 1 week and the 10th closed the next week. The point with the story is they must sell. So even with a major change in the United States being COVID and major closures of everything in California, they still had to close. Now, if those had been properties, we have 2 types of probates here. If those had been a property where they did not require court, they would have closed even before that. And we had many properties closed that were probate that closed during the pandemic, during the closure of the courts. So the key is the ultimate distress. If I'm behind on my mortgage, I can get caught up. I can get a forbearance. I may get a loan mod. Those things might make me not want to sell anymore. But with probate, it's the ultimate distress when someone has died. And here's the other reasons there's such good deals in probate. A lot of the properties are in subpar condition. I mean, I've seen properties where you look in the house and you can see the dirt. Instead of seeing the floor of the house, you see dirt because there's a hole in the ground. I've seen properties where you can't walk through other than a certain little minuscule path because they have packed so much. They're such big pack rats that there's so much stuff. They're hoarders that you have to, suck your stomach in and walk through the house. Well, these are an investor's dream. I have a client who had a property and this property was gutted. And the kitchen, you couldn't tell was the kitchen other than a little bit of plumbing that might have been in there left, but everything was torn out of it. Well, that's an investor's dream. You don't have to redo the floor plan. It's already been redone for you. All you got to do is bring your cabinets and install them. So for an investor, that's phenomenal, especially if you're going to flip or buy something under market. It's awesome to get properties in subpar condition. And it happens a lot in probate because people die when they get older and they couldn't keep up with the property. And now it needs to be rehabbed. So those are some of the reasons that there's such good deals in probate. But I started talking about this probate umbrella. Let's talk about what that probate umbrella is. It's conservatorship sales. Some states may call it guardianship sales. It's basically someone who they're still alive, but they can't handle their personal affairs. They could be really elderly. They could have mental disabilities. They could be, have dementia or Alzheimer's. These things are very common nowadays and create court-ordered or probate law sales that are what we call conservatorship sales. There's trust sales. In some states, people like to have their properties in a trust and it prevents them from having to go to probate court. And in those states, the trust sales oftentimes are regular sales. But because the person died, they fall under this umbrella of probate. And you get this business because you're that probate expert, you get that type of business. Then you have probate sales. That's where you have to go to court. I'll be talking about court-ordered probates and that kind of court process in just a moment here. Then you have ownership affidavit sales. There's many states. If you guys are in Illinois, if you guys are in Texas, I believe Florida may have situations where you don't have to have a probate if there's a spouse and it's the homestead. So depending on depending on the laws in your state, there are many states where you don't have to have an actual probate case to sell a property. The ownership affidavit states, for instance, I bought a property in January of 2020. I always forget the years. I was going to say 19. We should have closed in 2019, but the seller was really crazy and didn't want to close and all this kind of stuff. We actually, on Christmas 2019, Christmas Eve, me and my business partner, we signed cancellation instructions to cancel that escrow. But then the seller was like, no, I do want to sell it. They started backing up and then we got everything worked out. Bottom line is this, that was the mother's property. It was not the daughter who was the seller. It was not her property. It was the mother's property. And here I am with my California mindset, knowing probate law here. And I learned in that scenario that in that state, they have ownership affidavits. And so they did not have to go through court. The children of the decedent were able to sell the property to us. And so it was a phenomenal deal. Phenomenal deal. We bought that property for $65,000. That property recently appraised for $280,000. Didn't we just talk on the last slide about why there's such good deals in probate? this was a prime example. Phenomenal deal. And one child lived on one floor, another child lived on the other floor. They had to get out. They needed to get out of that place. There was mold. I couldn't even stay in the building very long because of the mold and stuff. They had to sell. And it made for a great investment for me and my business partner. And then we have other deceased party sales. The ownership affidavits are an example of that, but you have that all the time where someone, I'll get a call as an investor and someone say, hey, I got this probate deal. And then when I look into it and look into the paperwork, it's actually not a probate. It's actually something that does not have to close with a probate. There are also some states that have transfer on death deeds. Transfer on death deeds are deeds that typically they have no effect while a person is alive, but when the person dies, it transfers the property to an heir or some beneficiary. Those transfer on death deeds are deeds that avoid probate typically and allow another person to sell the property after the person dies. So these are all things that fall under that umbrella of probate, and things that we want to keep in mind are ways that you may be able to avoid the actual probate court. So I have some terms I want to put up here. I get this all the time. Investors and new people in the business call me all the time and they confuse things. So I'm going to lay this out. You guys might want to take pictures of the screen so you get these terms down, but you may have an executor or an administrator. Those two people typically run the same. They typically have the same responsibility. We may call them the personal representative or the estate representative. It's typically the same person. It means the person in charge. It's the person in charge of the estate. John Doe had property. He died. Little Sally Doe, his daughter, becomes the personal administrator or the personal representative or the administrator of the estate. They're the person in charge. They're your seller. There's a thing called a will. Most people know what a will is. It's a legal document that says this is what happens to my property when I die. If someone dies testate, that means they died leaving a will. If they died intestate, that means they died without leaving a will. Okay, and the will would usually tell you who they want to be in charge and who gets their property. Now, there's another thing called a trust. A trust is a written document that provides for property being held by someone for someone else. So my trustee would hold property for me and my beneficiaries. Okay, the trustor or grantor is the person who creates the trust. The trustee is the person who manages all the assets of the trust. The trustee is the person who's in charge of the trust. The successor trustee is the person that takes over when the original trustee is no longer able. So a lot of people will create a trust and they will be the trustor and the trustee. And then when they die, their oldest or most mature or most financially sound child will be the successor trustee. Okay, that's kind of the terms on the trust. But what I get all the time, and it kind of makes me giggle every time, is someone will go, hey, so we have this trust and the executor of the trust. Well, a trust doesn't have an executor. A will or a probate estate has an executor. Or they'll say, hey, we got this probate and the trustee, well, if it's a probate, it shouldn't have a trustee. Usually a probate is when there is no trust. Usually it's one or the other. So I just want to make sure you have this down so you know trust, trustor, trustee, successor trustee, those all go along with a trust. Executor, personal representative, administrator, etc. Those all go along with a will. So just want to make sure you have those terms down and you got that all together. So where do we start? Well, we start with where TANGIE started off. We start with leads. You got to have leads. You got to have people to go talk to. Whether it's pre-probate, meaning someone died and you're getting it way early, or if it's probate, meaning they filed a case and they're getting ready to start doing something, you want to start with those leads. And some people say, oh yeah, I want to drive down to the court. But look, our time is money. No matter how much money you make an hour at your job, your time is your money. Once you become successful at investing or successful in this real estate business, you really start realizing how much your time is worth. So the time to drive to a courthouse, sit in there and get the records and find the leads and gather all the data that Probates Daily has already done for you to get the information on the leads, why not just open your email or click a button and then it's boom right there on your computer? It's much, much better. So I always say the start is the leads. Get your leads from pre-probates or probate leads from Probates Daily. That's the place you go to get them. With the leads, they have this great special going on right now. So that's going to be your best bet. With the leads, normally people that go through one of my training, I train all over the nation and I always give this code KS101 because that tells Probates Daily that you talk to me or you learn from me and they will give you the best deal that they have at the time for those leads. So you can use that reference code if you like. Take a picture of the screen so you have that. I'll give you a key right here. When it comes to pre-probates, offer to help them pay for the probate, because different states have different laws in terms of when you have to pay fees and what fees have to be paid. But a lot of times that's the barrier. I've seen people that were heirs of an estate. They didn't know how probate worked. They were in a state where they didn't have to pay for the probate up front. They didn't have to pay till the end. So in other words, months after they sell the property is when the probate fees are due. And yet they didn't file probate for a decade because they didn't have the money and they didn't know how to start this process and didn't know what to do. That's where you come in and you can help them in that situation. Okay, so a great thing you can do is offer to pay for their probate or help finance their probate or whatever the case may be. Start a probate with zero out of your pocket. That makes the phone ring. That makes people go, oh, I can start with zero out of my pocket? That's been the barrier all this time. How do I do that? And they call you. It's phenomenal. And the other main key, these 2 bullet points here are the keys to opening the door with these leads. So one is offer to pay for the probate. The other thing is find out what their needs are. So many times I have people that'll call me, maybe they're coaching students, and we'll talk and they'll tell me about their interaction. And it'll get to the point where I say, well, what do they really want? And the person will reply, I don't know. I think they want, no, I didn't ask what you think they want. I want to know, what do they really want? You've got to find that out. If you find out what a person wants, and that's the golden key to everything. If you've heard that saying, I can't remember who coined that term, but or the saying, if you help others get what they want, you always get what you want, right? We've probably all heard that saying. The key is finding out what they really want to achieve and helping them get there. With probate, sometimes that means maybe what they want to achieve is they want to stay in the property. I've had a client say that to me, or a client say that to one of my clients that I was coaching. I've had both. And I always, the correct response is, okay, great. If I help you get X, whatever that is, if I help you stay in this property and die here, or at least stay in the property so you can keep this for the rest of your life, will you at least refer and tell your friends and family about me? And they're going to say yes. Because if you find out what they want and you ask them, if I help you get that, will you help me? They're always going to say yes. It's an inherent yes. And so it's a key point when dealing with the leads. If they say, I want to sell this, this was an exact answer from someone. I want to sell this property and move to Texas because that's where my daughter is. I want to be closer to my daughter. That's awesome. If I help you sell this property and generate X amount of revenue to be able to move yourself over to Texas and live closer to your daughter, will you be willing to work with me? They have to say yes, because they want that thing that you just talked about. And so finding out what they want is key when it comes to marketing to your leads. So you got to start with the leads. So that's awesome. I'm glad we started this whole seminar, this whole webinar based on that, because that is the key place to start. So the next question comes, who's in charge after the death? Typically, it's going to be a child or spouse. In most states, the spouse has like dibs on things when someone dies. And then there's some states that there may be some other things depending on, the familial situation. But usually you're looking for a child or a spouse. That's usually who you're going to find is the next person in command. The person in command could be designated in a will or in a trust, depending on the scenario. So you might want to be looking for that. That's always a good question to ask. Do you have a will? Do you have a trust? By the way, my website is the same name as my book. You'll see it in the background on every screen, Probate Real Estate Sales 101. I have a thing on that website called a cheat sheet. I highly recommend that you get the cheat sheet, because the cheat sheet, it has on it questions that you should ask so that you gather the data that you need to have to be able to go back to them and make an offer, or to be able to go back to them and help them get the process started so you can buy the house from them. So it's a good idea. You can go to probaterealestatesales101.com and download the probate cheat sheet. I think it's on the resources tab. It's one of the free resources on the website. You can also Google in your state succession laws. So if you're in Michigan, succession laws in Michigan. If you're in Florida, succession laws in Florida. And see, because most states will have something in their law that tells this is how it goes. If there's a spouse, they're first. If there's no spouse, then it's the children. If there's no children, then it goes to the parents, et cetera, et cetera. And that will be in the succession laws for that state. So you can Google that so you know specifically what's going on in your state. Now, there is something I like to call the probate gift. It's the affidavit of ownership. These are also called heirship affidavits. These are in those states where they allow an heir to sell a property without going through a court procedure. It's phenomenal. And the reason it's so good is because it basically makes this probate sale a regular sale for you. The paperwork that needs to be done is usually handled by the title company. There's some documents the seller signs. On your end, you don't even deal with it. As the buyer, you don't even really deal with it. It's only available in certain states. You got to find out on your state specifically. I think I mentioned a couple earlier. Illinois has them. Texas has them. There's other states that have ways. I believe Georgia has them. There's other states that have heirship affidavits where they can sell without it going through a probate, where the children can sell without going through probate. It's phenomenal because, again, your probate or pre-probate marketing is going to generate these leads, and then you find out we don't have to deal with the court process. Isn't that a gift? So it's pretty awesome stuff. I'll give you a little bit of details on kind of a summary of the process when you're selling with an ownership affidavit. So one, it avoids court altogether. There's no probate that has to get started. So the only way you'd know that they can do this in this type of scenario is from the pre-probate leads from Probate Daily. Now look, I've looked at numerous probate lead generation companies. I remember the time, it was about 2008, when there were no leads in California. There were no probate leads. No company was offering them widely. You know, the internet wasn't as big in 2008 as it is now. And so I remember these times. And so I've checked out every lead source that I've ever heard of that offers them in our community and across the nation. And, you know, the thing I love about Probates Daily is no one offers the pre-probates like they do with as accurate data as they have. So it's pretty phenomenal stuff. But with ownership affidavits, some states require it to be a year since the date of death, some may not, but that is the law in certain areas. And once that has happened, then you can sell without actually going through a probate case. A lot of times, all the heirs have to sign the deed. So the deed to the new buyer, all the heirs have to sign that. So usually all the children will have to be on board in terms of the sale. So let's look at what's required in certain states. A questionnaire, you fill out a questionnaire. There's an affidavit that gets sent to the title company, and you have to get approval from the title closing agent. Those are the main things. The title closing agent will set what their parameters are. They may have some other requirements as well. So generally speaking, in probate in most states, there's going to be 3 phases of probate. And these days, it's a very, you know, we got potentially 50 states here. Many of the states have, you know, a ton of counties in them. So 50 states times 50 counties, I don't know what even that number that is. It's, you know, 25,000 or 2,500, whatever. It's so many different areas. I can't cover information specifically for every area, but these are going to be some general guidelines. There's 3 phases most probates go through. It's the appointment phase, where they put someone in charge of the estate. Prior to that phase, no one has the power to do anything. In some states they do. In some states, when the will is there, you're good to go. But in some states, there's no one that has the power until someone's been appointed. Okay. The middle 8 months, if we're talking about a probate taking a year, the middle 8 months are the administration phases, where they find what are the debts, what has to be paid, sell properties that need to be sold, find out what other assets there are, make sure we have all the balances and all the accounts, all that sort of thing. And then the last 3 months in this 12-month example are the closing phases, where they wind down everything, they do all the accounting, figure out what taxes they got to pay, close out the estate. Here's the beauty of this, and TANGIE alluded to this in the beginning. In many states, you can sell as soon as someone has been appointed. I believe in Texas, they say they can get a person appointed in like 10 days. In California, you can only when there's an emergency, but usually they get people appointed in normal times, non-COVID times, they get people appointed in about 45 days. I've seen it even faster. So that's a beautiful thing. They can appoint someone quickly. Once that person has been appointed in most states, they can sell the property. Depending on the circumstances, depending, you know, sometimes in California, when they rush the appointment, they don't have the power to sell yet. But generally speaking, once they're appointed across the nation, a lot of times they have the ability to sell the property. Imagine that, 60 days and you can sell the property. So that's pretty cool stuff. You don't have to wait for all the monotony and the whole probate process and all this craziness that has to go on and court litigation or whatever may happen. You don't have to wait for that because you can sell the property. So that's a beautiful thing. You can buy the property as a buyer. The seller can sell the property to you. So usually there's going to be something called letters testamentary or letters of administration. They may call it something slightly different in your state, but it should be the first thing you obtain because that's what appoints the person to be in charge of the estate, puts them in charge. And some states appoint someone based on an order for probate or a probate order. So it could have different terms in your state, but it's kind of understood that it puts someone in charge of the estate. Here's an example of what they look like in Texas. And my screen is a little blurry. I think this copy is a little blurry. But if you were to read, you know, it's funny because so many people don't read documents. Well, I got the letters. I don't know what they say. Well, did you read it? If you just read it, it's pretty clear. State of Texas, County of Tarrant. I, Susan Henderson, the clerk of the county Clerk of the probate court of the county of Tarrant. So that means she's the court clerk. She certifies on this date that Robert Carroll Ballou qualifies according to the law as the independent executor without bond of the estate of Gail Linnell Ballou, deceased. These are therefore given, prove his capacity, blah, 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 witness this date, and it's signed and stamped. I mean, that's not that complicated to understand. The clerk appointed Robert Ballou to be the independent executor of Gail Ballou. Gail Ballou is the decedent, as it says right on the document. She's deceased. Robert Carroll Ballou. He's your seller. He's the person they put in charge. Pretty simple and easy to understand. Here's what they look like in California. The estate of, I whited out some of the information. That other one I found online, so it's already on the internet, so I don't mind sharing the info. But this one I white out the information so this was a transaction I worked on. The state of Perry, the court appoints someone by the name of Miller in box number 2 here. And in California, we have 2 different types of authority. Full authority, meaning it's a regular sale, or limited authority, means you got to go back to court. Okay, so box number 3 tells you right there. Literally, I see these on almost a daily basis, and I literally look at it for that long. As long as we just talk about it right now, that's how long I look. I look to see, is it the right estate, who they appoint in box number 2, and what authority do they have? Is it filed and stamped? And I'm done. It's like a 30-second viewing of this document. Here's one from Florida. Now, this one was a real document that I found online, and I don't know why I felt like doing it on this one, but we changed the names. So this was a real document with real case numbers. We changed all that and put Fred Flintstone. So Fred Flintstone, deceased, up here at the top, right? Letters of administration, to whom it may concern, whereas Fred Flintstone resided in blah, 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 owning assets in the state of Florida, whereas Barney Rubble has been appointed as the personal representative of the estate. Now, therefore, declare that Barney Rubble, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just in the first couple lines, you see Fred Flintstone's the one that died and Barney Rubble's the one that appointed. It was filed and stamped and it's all done. So it's not that complicated to read these things. If you read them, you'll see, okay, that's who has the powers. So pretty cool that it can be so simple to read the document to know who's in charge. But again, every state may be slightly different, and you have to know in your state what document appoints the person. So here's a summary of the process, right? They file a case. In some states, you wait as little as 10 days for a hearing. Some states it's longer. And that can depend on the court and how busy the court is. You could have one county where they appoint people in 10 days and another county in the same state where they appoint people in 2 months. It just depends on how busy they are and that sort of thing. But the hearing is usually like 4 weeks away. If they have to have a hearing, they usually schedule those things quickly. Most states will have laws in place, like we have to do these things quick because they know, as properties sit longer, there could be a fire, there could be a storm, there could be damage, and they want to get these things done kind of quickly. In a lot of states, I've talked to attorneys in numerous states, hearings take like 5 minutes. They can go through and name the decedent, name the name, who are we appointing, is all good, does he have any problems, is there a bond required, boom, 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 and then they're done. So it's usually a really quick thing. I had a brand new, he was so new and so good. Matter of fact, he was a college student just starting in real estate, and he was appearing in court. And I said, I'm going to go just to help you and support you. I'll go and be there. That case, I knew what was going to happen. Didn't really talk to him about it, but I said, come in a suit, be dressed professionally since you're representing, this seller. And so we go in there. And, it was maybe 15, 20 minutes or something, 40 minutes the whole time, 40 minutes, including the wait time till he was done. And he was like, oh, I thought I was going to be here all day. It was 8:30 appointment, by the way. So we get there at 8:30. You got to be on time. When you have court times, always be on time or early, because a lot of these, they go so fast. The case you're there for could be missed if you show up 2 minutes late. Literally, I had that happen. I showed up to court, got there at the appointed time, which was 8:30. They had a bad line at the security. This was early in my career. So I was in line for a long time, get to the courtroom at 8:45. My case was already done. So get there early. So anyway, I don't know, with wait time and everything, he's maybe in the courtroom for 40 minutes. And he's like, oh, wow, I was expecting to be here all day long. I got a free day now. So it's pretty cool that the hearings go kind of quick and they go quick. In some states, you got to prove a will. Some states, they're just lodging a will. It just depends on your state. And then the executor is sworn in, and they become the administrator of the estate. They don't always have to go to court to be sworn in. They don't always have to be present. So it just depends on the state exactly how that would go. The administrator or the executor, a lot of times they can sell on their own. A lot of states will indicate Independent Estates Administration Act, IEAE, or Independent Administration of Estates Act. So IAEA. I always get that acronym wrong. So many states will indicate they're appointing someone with independent powers. That's what they're referring to, meaning they can sell and they just report it later to the court. They don't have to get approval from the court. So a lot of times they can sell on their own, or they do it without approval. Typically in probate, there's going to be a requirement to publish the sale. They got to specify that they're publishing the probate and publishing the property. So, you know, in a lot of states, when you file a DBA or file a business, there's people at that recorder's office or at that courthouse that they do publications. Those are the people you publish those in. It doesn't usually go in like the New York Times. A lot of times it'll go in these smaller publications, and no one even ever sees them. When you have an offer and a contract, you might want to let the attorney know. Sometimes there's filings or things that have to go. So sometimes it's a good idea to let them know, but I would always do it after. Mark my words, after you have the signed contract. If you have a person that has powers, sign a contract first because it's binding. Once they've bound it, then you tell people. Don't go getting permission from the attorney. It's better to ask for forgiveness than to beg for permission. The attorney's job oftentimes is going to say, we should put this on the market. We want to advertise it. We want to get a real estate agent involved. As an investor, you don't want that. So you always notify the attorney after you have your contract in place. Very key point. I was on a webinar with, I don't know, a couple hundred people once, and I asked, you know, should you let the attorney know first or after? And about 50% of people said, oh, you got to let the attorney know. No, once they have the powers, once that person has powers as administrator, sign your contract, tell the attorney after. And then you can always go, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you wanted me to do that first. Well, it's already done. Contract's already signed. So here it is. And if you need me, before we sign anything else, I'll get it to you then. But you want to secure yourself in that deal first. Be very careful if you're attempting to wholesale. Wholesaling can be, I don't want to say prohibited, it can be challenging when you have a probate sometimes. If there's a court-ordered or a court-supervised sale, you may not be able to wholesale it, because if the court is approving the sale, they're approving the sale to XYZ buyer. You would have to assign it before going into court and getting that approval. So just be careful. If you're planning to wholesale, be careful how you approach that. You might want to get some better understanding of how the process is going to be before you step into a contract that you plan to wholesale. And use proper documentation. You know, the Association of Realtors for your state will have documentation that can cover you legally. I know a lot of investors will have good buddies that are agents. They'll get the contract from the agent and they'll use that contract because it covers everything. So again, the process, you know, if the starting point is this point up here and they go to 60 days, that's the beginning of the process. And 60 days is on the long side. You know, it could be 10 days, as some attorneys have told me in certain states. Isn't that nice? It's not that much longer. It's not that long of a delay. And for any of you who were investing after the mortgage meltdown, you know as well as I do, when the short sales first started picking up, it was 2 years sometimes to get a short sale approval. Would you rather wait 2 years or 10 days or 60 days, right? Probates at that time became the choice. Rather than people going, oh, I don't want to do a probate, I don't want to wait, I don't want to have all that court stuff going on. They were like, oh, a probate will be ready in 2 months, as opposed to a short sale that might take 2 years, or I've got a short sale I've been working on for a year and it's still not approved. Yeah, it became a lot better and a lot nicer. Well, hopefully just in this first part, I've shattered a myth. The myth being that probates are so complicated, my money is tied up for so long, or they take such a long time. There's a bit of a process. A lot of that process happens behind the scenes or is happening with what the attorney is doing, and you're not having to do that on your own. And the beautiful thing is, you know, depending on where they are in the process, you might be able to call a probate lead and they can sell you the house today. That's the beauty of it. With the heirship affidavits or owner affidavits, with transfers on debt, TOD deeds, with trusts, there's a lot of ways this probate umbrella can sell without even going through a court process. So here's an important thing I want you to understand. The court always wants the best interests of the estate. Everything you present is going to be in the best interest of the estate. There's this odd phenomenon. You know, I'll ask people, what's the fair market value of the property? Fair market value means the condition of the property. If I got a house that's been burned to the ground, the fair market value of that house is different than a house that was newly constructed yesterday. So I'll ask people, what's the fair market value? And they say, oh, in good condition. I didn't ask that. I didn't say, what's the market value of a house like this in good condition? I said, what's the fair market value? The reason why I want you to understand that is you got to learn these semantics, because the court doesn't give a crap about you as an investor. You as an investor, you come up with a price because if you can get it at that price, it's a good deal for you. If you can get it at that price, you can make money on this. The court doesn't care about you making money. The court cares about the best interest of the estate. So sometimes we have to take change our hat and think about, okay, what's in the best interest for the estate? And then we have to think about it differently. Well, fair market value for this property. Now, the one next door is different. But for this property, where when I walk in, I can look up at the California blue skies because there's a hole in the roof, and every time it rains, that rain pours down into the house. True scenario. Fair market value for this property, where I can't even walk into what used to be the bathroom because there is no floor in there. When you open the door to the bathroom, there's floor joists and dirt, the dirt under the subfloor. Why? Because some people tore out the flooring in this property. So fair market value for this property is X because of all these problems. And one of the things that works with courts, you guys should write this down, is livable condition. This property is not in livable condition because there is no bathroom, there's no toilet, there's no sink, there's no flooring. This property is not in livable condition because of the rat infestation. Because the seller, the decedent, was a hoarder, and the mold smell. The property that I bought in Chicago, we walk in, me and my business partner, I walked out within minutes because I'm very sensitive to mold from allergies, right? I'm very sensitive. I can smell it in a second when there's mold in a house, and it bothers me a lot. And I walked through to look at what I need to look at, and in moments I knew we need to tear out everything. And I walked out of the building. I let them do some more looking. I walked around the outside, looked at the neighborhood, did all that. Because I'm like, there's no fresh air in there. We need to tear everything out. And that's essentially what we did. So the point is, that place is not in livable condition. There were people living there. But because the mom died, 10 years earlier, that place was not in livable condition because of the mold and mold smell. So things like this are important to bring up. When the court sees, oh, it's not in livable condition. Oh, well, shoot. Yeah, I mean, no wonder the house next door sold for, $350 and the one down the street sold for $375. And this one's only selling for $200 because it's not in livable condition. So some key words. Remember, the court, the attorney, the estate administrator, they're supposed to do what's in the best interest for the estate. And so many investors don't understand how to word things in the right way. I'm an expert at that. I teach this all the time. I teach real estate agents how to do it. I teach attorneys how to do it, how to understand what needs to be sold. I teach investors how to do this all the time, how to put it in light that will make the court, the other heirs, the attorneys understand why the property is selling for less than what comps would be. Because you got to understand, the attorneys, the people at the court, the people who are evaluating this property, they don't go out to the property like you do. They don't walk inside the property like you do. So you have to show why the property is not worth what they might think it's worth. I'll give you an example of that. So there was this property I bought, and great scenario. I didn't wholesale it. Some people call this wholetailing. I actually bought it and sold it without ever getting out of my car on the street. And here's why. So the day I go to look at this property, this was 2010. The day I go to look at this property, I drive up on the property, and I came around this other side because of the way the streets were there. This property is right down the street from the projects of a to this day, a dangerous part of Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, a client of mine told me this is near 110th. I think it was on 109th. So a client of mine just sold a property on 104th about 2 months ago. And right after he sold the property, there was 2 shootings on his street. So this is like 5 blocks away from where this property is. So when I drive around the building, I see the side of the building. I'm like, gosh, there sure is a lot of gang tagging on the side of the building. When I get around the front, I park and I see the knuckleheads, AKA the thugs or gang of the neighborhood, start walking towards me. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm in slacks and a tie. I got hard-soled shoes on. I don't run very fast in these shoes. I don't really feel like fighting today. So I'm just going to look at the property from my car and drive away. I bought that property for $55,000. This was after the mortgage meltdown, so properties were really depressed, and obviously this is a bad area. Bought it for $55,000, sold it for $75,000. Never even got out of my car. Went on that street twice. I went that day when I saw it and said, yeah, I signed a contract with the sellers, and I went a couple months later the day before I wired the money so I could make sure the property was still there. Never got out of my car and sold that property. So it's, again, why are there such good deals in probate? That property was really beat up. There was mold. It was not in livable condition. The the people that were, so I'll give you the little background. The guy who owned the property died in 1989. This was 2010. The son kept the property. And what had happened is the guy that owned the property, he put in his will that when I die, give 10% of my estate to this church organization in San Diego. So he does that. He puts that in his will, and apparently he must have notified that church organization or gave him a copy of his will. So some 20 years after he dies, I guess the church organization is like, hey, did John Doe ever pass away? We never got his 10% of his estate. Well, they didn't have any money anyway. So what they did, what could they have done? The son couldn't have sold the property. He had 2 properties. He doesn't have money to give them 10%. You can't give them 10% of a house. So at this point, it becomes litigation. So we got a beneficiary that's supposed to get 10% of the estate. Another beneficiary is supposed to get 90. Long story short, the son's living in one property because he had delayed so long. He owed them more than just 10%. And bottom line is they negotiated. Look, I got this crappy house over here in this other part of LA. You can have that. I'm gonna stay in the house that I'm living in, and you can have that property. No problem. But the organization could not put the property in their name. They said, look, the second we have this property in our name, there was an 80-something-year-old woman living in this property with mold. It was a health risk. It was a risk to them. The second that property goes in the name, the tenant would want to sue them. So they said, we can't do it. I was like, cool, I could buy it. So they were in a situation where they must sell a property. Remember I talked about that earlier? They must sell a property, and I got to call my price. I called my price. We had some fees that had to go in there. That's why it came out to that $55,000, and I sold it and made money, never got out of my car, just did some paperwork. So it's pretty cool. But they're going to look at what's in the best interest for the estate. That's why I started on this topic. You've got to word these things. You've got to talk about things in the right way that it benefits the estate. And that's what we had to do on this deal. All right, so the number one tool for an investor. I don't have time to go in this today, but I have a thing called a probate, a webinar called the Probate Assignment. That property that I just talked about, I didn't actually buy the real estate. What I bought was the other heirs' interest. Their interest was the real estate, but because they did not want the real estate ever to go into their name, I couldn't buy the real estate from them. So what I did was I bought their interest in the estate. So when the estate was finalized and they said, okay, the house over here, son, you get that house and this other house, instead of going to that organization, because I had bought their interest in that estate, that house came to me. That was my first experience doing that 11 years ago. And the probate assignment is the investor's number one tool, because you're going to come across, sometimes with probate, you're going to come across people that died a long time ago, families that are fighting, and they won't do anything because I'm mad at him. He stole my lunch money when I was in first grade. You know, they're going to be fighting. The assignment gives you power to act and make things move forward for the estate. So it's not an assignment of a property. It's not an assignment of a contract. It has nothing to do with an assignment that wholesalers use. It is not an assignment of the property. It's an assignment of an interest in the estate. It's phenomenal. It's a great way to make money. I make money regularly through some assignment businesses that I have, and I teach people how to do that. So when I get to the end, I'll talk to you about it in my coaching program. I have an assignment webinar that I'm telling you, this webinar, it's priceless. I think that webinar should be $1,000 to $2,000 just for the 1, 2, or 3 hour webinar, because no one knows the information. No one teaches the information. Look, LA County is the busiest state in the nation for real estate transactions. And I know 2 investors that know how to do assignments. And both of those investors have gotten burned because they have problems in their paperwork. And so I coached both of those investors on how to get their paperwork right and gave them copies of the right documents and everything. So after I met them and found they were doing things wrong, I gave them the paperwork to be able to get their stuff done right. All right, probate is procedural. I'm going to give you some variations on probate and the logistics, and then we'll wrap up here. In North Carolina, they lodge a will. Real property is not really considered part of an estate. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Even attorneys I know that do business in North Carolina, they say it doesn't make any sense because it's not really part of the state. It's really confusing how it goes. But property automatically passes to the heirs based on a will or based on intestacy laws. So North Carolina is different. It's the only state that has certain rules like that. So it's different than all the rest of the states. In Florida, homestead laws supersede vesting in a trust. So in a lot of states, if I put my property in the trust, when I die, the trust dictates who gets the property. But in Florida, the homestead laws supersede that. In Florida, if the homestead law says, the homestead law says the wife, the spouse, gets the property no matter what on a homestead. And so you got, it supersedes. Like I mentioned, Illinois, Texas, and other states have ownership affidavits. I've talked about that a lot. In California, if you have a will or if you don't have a will, no matter what, it's going to probate. If you don't have a trust or or transfer on death deed. In Washington, the law says there, properties must go through a bidding process. So that's the law there. It's got to go through some sort of bidding. It's supposed to go through some sort of auction when it's a probate sale. They do that to make sure they get the highest possible price. There's 23 states that allow transfer on death deeds. So you might be in one of those states. If you get my book, anyone that orders leads from TANGIE and the folks at Probate Daily, you get a copy of my book. Otherwise, you can find it on Amazon, Probate Real Estate Sales 101. In my book, I list the states that have, at least at the time when I wrote the book, I list the states that have transfer on death deeds. I put 16-ish states, according to Wikipedia, have adopted the Uniform Probate Code. The Uniform Probate Code is a code that can be applied in multiple states. The reason it's 16-ish is because Florida adopted it, but they only adopted certain parts of it. Okay, and states have the option to do it. Many other states have adopted portions of the Uniform Probate Code, but the Uniform Probate Code was this code written where they're like, hey, if we write this code, then every state can follow it. If you are in any of these states, your state follows the Uniform Probate Code. But the fact is, all 50 states did not adopt it, and so you have a lot of variation in these states. But these states, these 16-ish states will be similar. Part of the reason I say ish is because there was a really big suit where a Michigan attorney, and you see Michigan adopted the Uniform Probate Code. A Michigan attorney made a mistake that cost $3.7 million because they were relying on what was in the Uniform Probate Code, thinking Florida had adopted it fully, but Florida law was different and it cost them dearly. So, that was a big case. That had to do with some litigation, some filing times and filing deadlines. You as investors aren't going to deal with that, but it's just a testimony for how things can be slightly different in every state. You also have things that are different county by county. I'm here in Los Angeles, California, and in LA County, for instance, real estate listings, the agents list the properties for 5% in LA County. Orange County, which is the adjacent county, the next county over, they listen for 6%. That's a difference just by county preference of what the courts want. The guidelines for probate on court confirmations in LA County and in many parts of the state is 10%. In LA, it's somewhat flexible because we have big sales sometimes. You might have a $2 million sale and they're flexible. So that, if someone puts down $100,000 on a $2 million sale, that's not 10%, but they're serious because it's a lot of money. Whereas in San Bernardino County, which is lower price points in San Bernardino County, they are rigid on the 10%. So it can vary state by state, county by county. It can also vary case by case. Some judges are more lenient on stuff. Some judges are sticklers. They can be more strict. Some attorneys want to follow different rules, or some attorneys want to see everything before anyone signs everything. Like I mentioned before, get your doc signed, then ask for forgiveness afterwards. But and it varies based on how deposit checks and stuff are done like that, just by attorneys. So I have a great resource for you guys. I like to provide resources, and I like to provide something that is valuable for you that can help you with your business. That resource is me. So look, the reason I started investing in 1993, I was in a management training program in 94, summer of 94, I became a bank manager. Okay. And I had some clients and they informally mentored me. I talked to them and listened to them. One guy, it was one conversation. The other guy, we had numerous conversations. And I talked to them and I listened to what they talked about that they were doing. And I really wanted to get a good understanding of how they do what they do. And the key is I learned from them, and it really made me want to be a real estate investor. And I just love that I learned, my thought back then, I was in my 20s, and I said, well, look, if I buy properties before I'm 30 and mortgages are 30 years, a tenant can pay my mortgage for all that time. And then when I die, I got free cash flow. And so that's why I'm a buy and hold investor. That's why I do what I do. But now I love to share that information. I love to share that information and help people out. I do individual one-on-one coaching that's only for one person. That's at a very high price point, so it's not available for everyone. So I started group coaching, and the group coaching has been massively successful. People have been getting deals and putting deals in escrow based on my coaching and what I teach them. So there are 6 recorded group calls. On these 6 recorded group calls, you get me teaching a topic for just about an hour, sometimes over an hour, and you get 6 of those. And so that's 6 topics that can take you from 0 to 100. If you're already at 80 and you just need to push it over the top, it takes you from 80 to 100 or 105. With that, you get 2 30-minute one-on-one calls with me. And the process is supposed to be, you go through 3 of the recorded group calls, and then a one-on-one, then 3 more, and then another one-on-one. You get access to the Facebook group where you can get a lot of questions answered. You have a lot of resources. People can help you with other things. You have infographics, marketing materials, postcards, all of that stuff is involved in there. You get my Probate Real Estate Sales 101 starter pack that sells for $250 on the website. You get that free with it, and then you get the probate assignment training. There's nowhere else I have this probate assignment webinar. I don't train it on a regular basis. And if I did, I would probably charge $1,000 a head. And so you get that with this group training. And so the beauty of it is you get to call me and have conversations with me after this. I have a guy right now, Oran. He's in my training program. He's one of my coaching clients. He was newer in the business. He was newer in the probate business. I think he's been a commercial broker for a little while, background as an attorney, but breaking into probate was all new for him. Had to set up systems to be able to market and all that stuff. I coached him through it. I coach him regularly. He calls me, and I'll tell you what, I think either tomorrow's Wednesday, either Wednesday or Thursday this week, they're supposed to be closing his first probate deal. He was looking at that to buy for himself, ended up deciding not to buy it for himself, and bought it for a client of his. And they're closing that deal. And I believe he has 2 to 3 more coming very soon after. I think they have some listings and some other transactions that are coming. I think 1 or 2 that he's going to buy and a couple that he's going to list because he's an agent. The beauty of it is, he did the work and I coached him through that and helped him get to the point that he's at. So it's pretty cool. The value of my package, the value of all the things that I put in here is about $2,650. And I want to give you some success stories. Okay. Dan, and I've changed the names of these guys because I'm using their images and stuff. They told me I could, but I just said, nowadays with Google and all that, people can find people. So I said I won't. But Dan, when he talked to me, he said, Kevin, the reason I'm doing your coaching program is, look, I have 5 years to make an impact and really get it going in this business. I need to get this business up and running and going really well so I can bequeath it to someone else and retire. In the first month of the coaching, he had a contract and another potential contract that looked like it was going to be turning in. It was a strong lead that looked like it was going to be turning into another contract. So that was in month 1. Jason is a guy I love to talk about because Jason is coachable and follows direction. In year number 1, when I met him, I put that he had 1 year experience. I didn't find out till last year that when I met him, he had like 2 months of experience. January marked his 3rd year. Last year, I think he finished as an agent as like the number top 3 or top 1% in LA County, which is big. There's a lot of agents in LA County. But in his first month of coaching, he got a contract. Andy. So Andy was a door knocker, non-licensed. He worked for a guy that had a big real estate company, did a lot of investing and flipping and all that. Andy was the guy that knocked on doors. He knocks on this door. I got to tell his story, a little bit about his story. He knocks on this door, finds this guy. These people say that they're the heirs of the estate. They're not. This one took a long time. It took about a year for him to get through because he learned all these new things that he can do. So he's the guy knocking on the door to find properties to buy. He ended up becoming the administrator. He ended up selling the property to the company of his business partner. I know he made money by being the administrator. I'm sure he made money on the sale. I'm sure he made money on the flip. I mean, I don't know exactly what he made, but the flip looked like this. His business partner bought the property for $500,000, somewhere around I think it was in the $550 range. They developed and sold that property for $1.5 million. It was a property in Silver Lake, which is part of LA. And it was right around the time Silver Lake was really getting hot. Silver Lake became this real hipster type of location. It was right when that was happening. And they added 1 unit and flipped that thing for $1.5 million, something like that. Profit far above $300,000. And I think he made at least a couple $100,000 range. He was out door knocking, looking for properties to buy. And he ended up becoming the administrator of that estate. Long story how it all happened, but just phenomenal. Like I said, Jason just hit his 3-year mark. He's closed several deals in the last 18 months. I wrote this about 6 months ago when he had signed a that $2.6 million deal closed in January, and he's in the top 1% of listing agents nationwide. So just to recap, here's what you get with the group coaching program. Because of TANGIE and the guys here over at Probates Daily are so good. They consistently bring me and have me coach. They refer clients to me, and I love their leads because across the nation, they have some of the best leads that are available for you for probate. They're the only people that I know that have pre-probates. So I give you guys a discount. On my website, the price for my coaching is, I believe it's $1,300, $1,297. I'm giving you $300 off today. So this is my offer for you guys. It's only going to be around for 48 hours. So today is Tuesday. You got Wednesday, Thursday, end of the day on Thursday. This goes away. So if you want my coaching, you will get calls with me, and I have some more I'm going to offer you. So take a picture of this screen. The code for the coaching is code 300 off. Type it just like this, 300 off, all in lowercase, and two things will happen. Number one, you're going to get $300 off the coaching, so it's only $997. And number two, I'm going to give you an extra coaching call. So you get an extra call with me, another time, another opportunity for me to help coach you. There's a lot in probate that is counterintuitive. I can't say that enough. And people do what they would do with normal type of leads and normal type of marketing. And some things have to be done differently, and especially with the pre-probates. And if I don't teach you that, you're going to get a lot of lumps. You get a lot of lumps. You bump your head up against the wall a lot. If I do teach you that, it shortens your learning curve, puts money in your pocket much, much faster. So take a picture of this screen. Code is 300 off. I give you one extra coaching call, and you get my coaching package for $997. The website is probaterealestatesales101.com. You click on products, and then you click on coaching. So Tangie, I want to bring you back up, and maybe we can start answering some of the questions in the chat. Are you there, Tangie?
Hey.
There we are. All right.
Hi.
What questions do we have in the chat?
Well, we got about 89. No, I'm just kidding. So we got some great questions. That was a great training session. Thank you so much. So I signed up already. Well, okay. She wants to know. Oh no, that has not relevant. Sorry. Somebody just said, what about California? I mean, I don't know how you answer that, but all it says is, what about California? So maybe you could be a little bit more descriptive, Sam.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit about California. I do very extensive training on California. That's the state I'm in. But this webinar is for people outside of California, because since I'm a closing agent in California, there's some legalities about what I train on and don't train on. But if you go to Probate Real Estate Sales 101 on Facebook, it's a Facebook group called Probate Real Estate Sales 101. If you look in the guides, there's a free hour-long training like this one, but it's for California. There's two. There's this one like this and one for California. And then the advanced training on the website is also specific to California. The advanced training is phenomenal, by the way, guys. I teach 7 ways to make money in probate, etc. But it also covers some specific stuff specific to California. You can also reach out to me directly. My email and everything's on the screen here, so we can talk about that another time.
Okay, so how good do you have to be at knowing price for Reno? Can I guesstimate based on what I know, or should I really get price?
Knowing price in terms of prices of the property. I mean, as an investor in general, I think you need to be good at picking price points. You need to be good at your market and knowing what you should buy a property for. I have a client friend of mine, there's all these coaching programs out there, and they're not all created equal. Okay. So he went with this guy who coaches people on how to flip. The guy helped him flip. Now I've seen the guy's work. He does phenomenal flips, phenomenal. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat, they put together this flip, and the problem is their price point. The property is gorgeous and immaculate. I love the property. The problem is it's in a neighborhood where you can't get the price they need to get. So they're at a point now where they cannot sell it at the break-even point. You have to know price in your market and be able to understand what point can I sell it at in order to buy it at the right price, because you make your money on your purchase price.
Okay. In reference to the probate comments, pre-probate, I'm not clear if you offer to help them start the probate process, which is, we did agree that we do both agree, Kevin, that you should always offer to help pay for the probate. A lot of times attorneys will work with you at deeply discounted rates and maybe just a small fee up front, and they'll start the process for you and accept the fees in the end. What leverage do you have that they will come back to you if you are seeking to list the property? Well, first of all, the leverage that you have that they'll come back to you is you can always go to the courthouse, and it's kind of like, it's not really the contractor's lien, but you can file, what is the name of that, Kevin?
So there's
affidavit of interest.
There's various different things that you can do. You can do that. Many times with you can file a creditor's claim. In some states, the law says anyone that advances fees for an estate are able to get repaid. And so in some states, you can just do that and then file your creditor's claim. And also, you can have a letter of intent or even a contract signed by them. If you sounds like you're an agent because you said to list the property, if you're a buyer, to sell the property. So there's absolutely ways you're going to protect yourself. That's very key. You're going to protect your money so that you don't do all this work to help them and not get the property when the time comes.
Yeah. And that was the name of it. It's you go to the courthouse, you file an affidavit of interest in the property. That's one of the ways. Where do I find the script for cold calling? Well, in the bonuses, when you purchase the leads for ForeclosuresDaily.com, you get the toolbox full of bonuses and there's scripts right in there. If you didn't get it and you are a client, please reach out to me, TANGIE at ForeclosuresDaily.com. Do you need to find a title company that knows how to handle probate sales?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, if there's a title company that doesn't, I would be shocked on how they're in business. They should know, but everyone is not created equally. So I would want, talk to the title company you've been working with, find out if they have expertise in that area. If they say they know how to handle them, then great. If not, then seek out one that knows really, really well. Depends on what state you're in and that sort of thing.
This person can't find your cheat sheet that you had mentioned, the free cheat sheet.
Yeah, if you go to Probate Real Estate Sales 101 and then click on, I'll show you right now. Can you still see my screen, Tangie?
Oh yeah, we can see it. Probate Real Estate Sales 101 right there.
Yeah. I don't know why it's taking so long. You go there, you click on resources. And the cheat sheet is right there. You click on it, there's a little video here. You click here, it'll have you fill out, and then you download it. So it's on the resources tab at Probate Real Estate Sales 101.
In what circumstances does a court need to approve an offer on a property? If there is a PR named, is that unnecessary? They're Wisconsin.
They're in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Okay, so it depends on in your state. Usually, if the person has independent authority, then they can sell without going back to court. Each state varies and each state is different. In California, our letters are going to dictate that, but every other state does not do that. But a lot of times in the letters, it may say whether they have independent authority or if they don't.
Okay. Which is better, to mail the letter to the property address or the mailing address? See, the thing is I always teach people you should mail to the property address if you do not have the PR's name and address. And obviously, if it's a pre-probate, there is no PR yet. They just died a week ago. There's typically not named a PR yet. Basically, you'd have to reach out to the decedent's property. Now, I had people use the mailing address before, and they ended up sending a letter to the nursing home. So, I always recommend that you send the letter right to the property where typically it's being handled. Usually when people pass away, their parents are usually 50 and 60, or the children are usually 50 and 60 years old. So they're usually responsible enough. They usually go over once a week, check the mail, mow the grass, check on the house, or even if they do live out of state, they can have the mail forwarded for 6 months to a year after the death.
Yep.
So I recommend the property address on that one. For livable condition, do you recommend to include photos, estimates from vendors such as roofers, etc.?
Absolutely. I think you said for condition of the property. Absolutely. That helps a lot. There was a probate case I was coaching a person on years ago, probably 8-10 years ago. And in that case, it was imperative. She had to get a contractor's estimate and have lots of pictures. It's very, very key because realize you go to the property, no one else does. The attorney never goes to the property. The judge obviously never goes to the property. So the people that may be arguing or not wanting the property, the other heirs, a lot of times don't ever go to the property. So recently I have a situation where there's heirs, they're out of state and they need updates from someone on what's going on with the case. And so we let them know that because on this property, you pull comps. If this property were 2 blocks farther south and nicely done, this place might sell for $2 million. Because of where it is, we hope they're going to get $750. So that's actually $750 is the highest offer that they've received. So absolutely, whatever you can show to help your situation, to push that price down, it's whatever you can show.
Would you market to probate leads in the state that you live in, outside of the state that you live in?
Yeah, look, whatever market you want to market to, it's harder if you're marketing out of state, how well do you know the area? Like if you grew up in, I don't know, in Mississippi, in some city in Mississippi, and you want to market there, okay, so be it. But to market in an area you don't know and you don't know the market area that well, I wouldn't recommend that. I always recommend marketing to areas that you know well and that you know the property values, you even know people and that sort of thing. It helps with connection. It helps with you understanding, what a good offer is going to be.
And I can help with that too, Kevin. A lot of people are moved to virtual wholesaling these days because sometimes they don't want to wholesale right in their own state. It may be way more competitive than the other. So if you don't have a foot in the ground, you can always reach out to some of the local REIA groups outside in that area, in that state. And a lot of people on those local REIA groups will help out too. And any of the Facebook groups that may be, hey, anybody in Georgia, or I have anybody users in Florida. The Facebook groups are ridiculous and they'll give you so much information.
Absolutely.
What is a good way to pull a probate list in Maryland? Probate-Daily.com. Hello, right? Just reach out to Tangie at ForeclosuresDaily.com. You can reach me at my office line, 813-563-0005, extension 2. My cell I put up earlier, 863-698-3550. That is the best way to get a list for the probates. Sandra Rowlands, hello, will we get a copy of this webinar? Yes, we will actually. You will be able to go onto YouTube tomorrow and just go to Foreclosures Daily and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will be posting a replay. So you'll get a copy of this on the Foreclosures Daily YouTube channel. I've been doing probate mailers for more than 6 months. That's all she says. Now I know that I had a lady ask earlier that she's been doing probates for more than 6 months and she hadn't had any luck, but she was doing mailers only. I suggest that you cold call, mail, SMS, ringless voicemail. I even have people that do driving for dollars. Don't limit your capabilities of reaching your seller. You're only hurting yourself by doing that. Kevin, do you take payments?
Oh, for the coaching program, I do not. If someone is real serious, they can email me. Maybe we can work something out, but I generally don't take payments. It's one payment at the time when you buy the coaching.
Okay. I had a property under contract. The representative of the estate then signed a deed to someone else. They let the property go up for tax deed sale, and now they are both trying to get the money from the tax deed sale. Remember, I paid for the probate. Oh.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of after the fact. I would have wanted to see them file some sort of litigation prior to that sale happening. That's one, when something like that happens, it's a legal issue. So you immediately should be calling an attorney. But it sounds like it's after the fact now. If you have not done it already, I would recommend you talk with an attorney and see what your recourse is.
I had a situation, Nick says, I had a situation where a person who was a PR for a property told me they received an appraisal, and the lawyer they were working with that said that they can't receive a lesser offer than what it is appraised for. Are they running game on me, or is that the real deal in DC?
That might be the real deal in DC. You know, you can check with you can check with another attorney in DC that knows probate. You can check with a real estate professional if there's someone there that knows probate. That might be the scenario. But the thing that, you know, and also look at the appraisal and see if it's a real appraisal, because in some states they do what they call court appraisals. It's not a real appraisal. It's basically, it's like more like a BPO. It's someone's opinion without going inside the property. And so you want to check and see what that is, because that may be another way that you can refute that appraisal.
Kevin, is there any way to buy properties via subject to on the probates?
Yeah, that happens all the time. I mean, if there's liens or whatever that you're going to buy subject to, if there's a loan on the property that you want to buy subject to, yes. Now, the estate may not allow it. Buying subject to has to be, you know, with the approval of the seller, right? So the estate may not want it to happen or may not allow it to happen, but it is possible, absolutely.
So are you saying that all the states able to do affidavit of heirships in order to sell?
Am I saying that all states can do affidavit of heirship? Absolutely not. But some states do, so you have to check with your own local state.
Okay. How do you maneuver around the court process with probate leads?
I'm not really sure I understand that question.
I'm not sure I understand the question either, but that was our last question for the evening.
Okay,
so
it sounds like they're like, how do I get around it? I mean, you know, if there is a probate process, you can't get around it because the probate process has to go through for it to be legal. But you know, that I don't know, maybe they can clarify, or you can email me that question later.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I mean, that's pretty much all we have. If anybody has any lingering questions, how do they reach you? Do you have a slide? Do you have a Twitter? Do you have a email? I mean, did you have something up there showing how they reach you?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I do have Twitter and all that, but I'll tell you right now, I'm a little bit old school. I love it when people call me best because I'm just a little old school. That way, call me or email me is best. Here's a slide with my info. Probate Real Estate Sales 101 is my website. All my contact info is on there. You can email me or call me at that 800 number. Those are the best ways to reach me. So that is preferential. People will hit me on Facebook or something like that. You know, I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to see the message on Facebook, but it may be a long time. Twitter, I don't think I've ever logged into my Twitter account, or at least not in a long time. I do go on Instagram, but you know, why go one of those ways when you can email me direct or call me?
That's perfect.
Direct.
Kevin at Probate Real Estate Sales 101.com. That's Kevin at Probate Real Estate Sales 101.com. That's perfect. And guys, thank you so much for joining our webinar tonight. Kevin, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. And hopefully we'll see you again in 6 months to a year. And we look forward to ordering more books from you.
Sounds like a plan. Talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.